Well, it looks like nothing's changed in the Delphi case. Um, the judge, still canceling hearings and won't rule on things. The prosecution is still withholding evidence to the last possible second. Um, and but the only thing that has changed is Rick's got a smile on his face. They tried to break him. They tried to make him go crazy or kill him in prison, and they failed. And so um, I hope to see this go to trial. I am not certain that it will, because not because of the defense. They've wanted it to go to trial for a long time. The prosecution and the judge are up to their old tricks and trying to stall because um, they don't want any of this coming to light. They um, they must know by now that he's innocent, and yet their pride keeps them um, from letting him go. So today we're going to talk about Ron Logan admitting to killing Abby and Libby. And I would bet that many of you have not seen this letter from James Haas, who was a cellmate of Ron Logan's before. And this Rick Snade put out this letter, and I'm showing the original right now. Um, but what I did is I just retyped the more important part of the letter that has to do with Ron's admission to killing the girls. Now, um, with the case of Rick Allen, we have to believe his admissions, right? Because he admitted to shooting the girls or killing them with a box cutter, or he admitted to killing his mom and his wife. We have to believe all that because we have to believe all confessions. And yet, Ron Logan confessed to a cellmate years ago, and no one even knows about it to begin with or believes it. I, um, Rick Allen's cellmate said that, told uh, the warden that he was being taunted by uh, his guards and cellmates and being tortured, and yet no one believed him. So it's interesting how we have to believe um, cellmates at times, but not at other times. And it's common for um, convictions to come about or cases being solved from cellmate confessions. Manson was um, one of his girls had confessed to a cellmate in jail, which is how they solved that crime. So it's very common to solve crimes through jailhouse confessions, and we don't just throw them out just because it happens to be another criminal that they confess to. So this is James Haas' letter, and talking about while he was with Ron Logan. Now, for what this is all about, the double homicide murder in Delphi, Indiana, Libby and Abby. I know who did it. This is no prank or joke. This is where it gets bizarre. I was in the Carroll County jail with the man, and he confessed everything. He told me things the public don't even know. So you want me to say it? Okay, he told me. One, I caught him pleasuring himself by saying, Abby, oh Abby, over and over. Lie still, be still. Well, keep in mind, at this time, back in 2019, I've been studying this case since the day they were killed. We didn't know how the girls were killed. We didn't know that the killer had um, had focused on Abby, and um, now we know that Abby was redressed. Abby was given the little crown of sticks over her head. Um, we know that the killer had um, um, kind of made, uh, what would you call it? A kind of enshrined Abby, immortalized Abby. He put two bras on Abby. Um, and I think the bra kind of symbolizes um, being feminine, being virtuous, and by him putting two bras on Abby, I think that kind of shows that he idolized Abby and um, thought highly of her. Now, Ron Logan knew Abby's mom and probably knew Abby. I would guess that he knew her before the crime. And so um, he treated Abby very differently than Libby. And by him saying here, Abby, oh Abby, over and over, that tells you that Ron Logan had fantasized and thought about Abby. And even at the viewing, um, Ron Logan complained that they didn't do a good enough job on Abby. He was still fixated on her. Um, and and so, and the second part where he says, lie still, be still, um, Libby was killed very quickly, whereas Abby had one puncture wound and she died. She bled out slowly. And and so he knows this. He knows he's saying, lie still, be still. She was moving about, and we know she was moving back and forth from the blood spatter analyst. Um, and by him saying, lie still, be still, he's saying she's moving around, and he's telling her in his mind to lie still, be still. And so these are two separate indications that Ron Logan knew things about the crime scene, that he obsessed over Abby, first of all, and we know the killer obsessed over Abby by the redressing. Um, Now, there was talk about undoing. I don't believe that there was any undoing of the crime. There was no remorse. Ron Logan was a psychopath and he had no empathy. And so there was no undoing. There was a shrine, in effect, built to Abby, but there was never any remorse, and I don't believe there was any undoing in this case. All right, let's continue. Two days later, he said, I guess I need to kill a couple more girls. I told the guards my lawyer wanted me to be quiet about it until after my trial, which was a couple of months later, I believe. He also told me either he cut off Libby's head or both. I can't remember. I at this time was pretty upset. So this information is damning. We didn't know that the killer used a knife in this case. No one knew how the girls were killed. But when he says he also told me he cut off Libby's head. Now, Libby was nearly decapitated, but the fact that he's saying either he cut off Libby's head or both, I can't remember. Now, he didn't do the same with Abby, but he was disturbed. Even James Haas was disturbed at hearing this. Um, and he even says he was pretty upset at hearing this information, which it is disturbing. Um, and so he forgot, he couldn't remember if it was both, but he did remember it was Libby that had nearly been decapitated. And this is absolutely direct knowledge of the crime. And there's no way James Haas could have known this back in 2019 unless he heard it straight from Ron Logan. And there's no way Ron Logan would have known that unless he was the killer. This is absolute uh, evidence that Ron Logan committed this crime. Let's continue. I did not tell the guards this part, but the only way for me to know this is him because they never let this out to public. He also said the reason for him being there is to get an ankle bracelet, which he has been friends with the prosecutor's family for years. And that's true, not Slick Nick's family. This is the previous prosecutor, but he was friends with his family and probably did get special treatment. And he would for sure get it, and he did. 5, he said he was not worried for his alibi was iron tight. 6, went to a dump and to buy fish, another thing public don't know. So how do I know? He told me. As long as he goes free, more money comes into the community, fundraisers, bike rides, you name it. They do not want that to stop. But all along, I am innocent, sitting in prison for something I never did. All while, he is a murderer going free. Thank you, James I. Haas. He lives in Delphi. He is 79 years old. Girls found on his property. His name, Mr. Logan. Please listen. This is the truth. And he is telling the truth because he's mentioned many things that only the killer would know. Now, I'm sorry. I don't believe that all murderers, when they say that they're not guilty. When Netflix does a documentary on someone, that's how I know for sure that they're guilty. So I'm not one of these that just believes everyone. When they say they're not guilty. But I happen to know that Richard Allen is innocent. I happen to know that Ron Logan committed these crimes, and I have no doubt about it. There's so much evidence. And if you see my other videos, you'll see all the evidence that points to it being Ron Logan. There's ample evidence. Now, interestingly, early on in this case, if you call them influencers, but the influencers at the time decided that it couldn't be Ron Logan, and they would ridicule anyone who said otherwise. And so a lot of people fell victim to their ridicule and jumped in line and said, nope, it can't possibly be Ron Logan. These are, how people of Walmart are kind of the fattest and ugliest people on the planet. I call these people of Reddit, who are people who are ignorant and not deep thinkers, people who, if you ridicule them, you can get them to change their mind. And so influencers convinced all the people of Reddit out there that it can't possibly be Ron Logan. And so to this day, there are people who are scared to even consider it being Ron Logan. They're scared of ridicule. So I think that's how um, certainly with the law enforcement, um, Doug Carter decided early on that it couldn't be Ron Logan because he's too old. He was 77. There's no way a 77-year-old can commit murder. Um, and when the FBI knew it was Ron Logan early on, and and fought the ISP in Carroll County the whole way because they were at odds. Uh, the FBI wasn't so stubborn um, and hard headed when it came to um, solving this case, but Doug Carter was, and Doug Carter made the mistake of intertwining his reputation with solving this case, and he got too close to the families, too close to this case, and so he needed it. He needed someone to pay for this crime, um, and because he had decided it couldn't be the actual killer, Ron Logan, he had to find someone. And so he sent his bulldog, Jerry Holman, um, to interview Richard Allen. And I'm sure both of these are good men. I hate even speaking ill of them in this respect. I think that they are had good meaning, but um, the end result of their being stubborn and closed-minded, um, the end result was devastating for Richard Allen and his family. And so, yes, I, I believe that they're good men, but I believe that their egos and their reputation mattered more to them than throwing someone under the bus and doing what they did to Rick. So I call this next part deception because there was a lot of deception to get to this point in the case. They asked Rick to come pick up his car that they had taken during the search warrant, and um, so Rick thought he was just going there to get his car. And they pulled him aside in an interview, and there's no indication that they read him his Miranda rights because the beginning of the interview was cut off. It was manipulated um, for a reason. And so they've got Rick saying, I'm telling you, there's no way that a bullet from my gun was used in these murders. Now, Rick still is thinking that maybe the girls were killed with a gun, were shot. He doesn't know how they were killed. So and then Holman says, and I'm telling you, Rick says, you could have taken it from somewhere else then because it's not possible. Holman, I'm not on video. Rick, neither am I. Holman, I don't think you're a bad person. Rick, what kind of a good person kills two people? Holman, you're guilty of something. You're guilty, and I know it, and I'm going to effing prove it. So you're guilty of something. We don't know what, and I don't have proof, but I'm going to prove it. And then they arrest him that day. This is desperation on the part of Doug Carter and Jerry Holman and Liggett. Liggett just wanted an arrest because he had a sheriff race in a couple weeks, and he likely would have lost that race without this arrest. So they all had dirty hands in this. It was all about pride, reputation, getting sheriff. For Slick Nick, he was more concerned about getting his extra $5,000 than he was if this is actually the killer. Everyone's had dirty hands in this. Judge Gold, she wants to be on the Supreme Court so bad, so she's sucking up to Doug Carter, um, who's besties with the governor, and that's her motive for throwing Richard down under the bus. Everyone has a motive, and is dirty in this. Um, and they've thrown out all the laws, the Constitution, everything's been thrown out to to break Richard Allen. They needed these so-called confessions because they had no evidence. And so, yeah, you have your confessions. He's confessed to shooting the girls and stabbing them with the box cutter, and he's confessed to killing his wife and his mom. And but all those confessions prove his innocence. They just broke him. Uh, all they did um, was break Richard Allen to a point where he gave false confessions. So they filmed Richard Allen talking to his attorneys. That never happens. They threw him in prison in solitary confinement. Um, that never happens. There's been so many laws that have just been thrown out in this case, just to try to drum up some kind of false confession, which is what they got. So now they have a bunch of false confessions. Congratulations. It does them no good. So we only have a couple months before the trial, hopefully a trial. And I really want Rick's lawyers to see the truth, to see who is actually responsible for this case, that it was Ron Logan. And I'd be delighted if Judge Gold inadvertently, by trying to screw the lawyers over, I hope she throws the witness out. That would make my day. And it would leave us with Ron Logan, because there is a nexus between Ron Logan and the murders. They were found on his property. And she can't possibly throw Ron Logan out as a third-party defense. And so it would be ironic if she ends up being the savior in this case, by throwing the witness out and forcing Brad and Andy to focus on who actually was the killer, Ron Logan. And we'll see. We'll see. But I would be delighted if that ends up being the case. All right. Thank you for your time.